Yeah, what's good, y'all? It's your man, the Bigga P, and I'm here to record my thoughts on the HBO Doubleheader that just finished. Um, First of all, just to give a brief history, brief background. I shouldn't say history. I know this was going against UFC tonight, and I honestly thought that UFC would be a lot better than the fights tonight. How wrong I was! How wrong I was! First fight, was between Jesse Vargas and Wale Omotoso. And now, it's a style clash because Vargas, he's a boxer, not your typical Mexican fighter, doesn't go in and brawl. And Wale is just nothing more than, he's a brawler. Now, with, that combination, and that potential combination, you think, okay, maybe something would happen. Something won't happen. Something did happen. And it was a damn good opener. Vargas, showing the Mexican side of him, if you want to call it that way, and just slugging it away. And but in the early rounds, Wale was getting the best of him and even dropped him for that flash knockdown. And then, but he came back in the fifth round and just pounded Wale around the ring. I'm thinking to myself, I mean, I didn't think Vargas even had it in him to even have this type of power to even rock. And Wale was 10 pounds heavier than he was when he rehydrated. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, like this is like basically the pace was brisk in one round, and then he took it off in another round, and then they'd go back at it again. Um, Now I thought the fight was close. I had Vargas winning by a round, pretty much, because it was even going into the last round, and I gave the last round to Vargas. Now, while I have no problem with Vargas as the winner, hell, I would have even accepted a draw too, because I didn't think both of them deserved to lose their O's. But the scores were just a little bit too wide for me, for my liking. I didn't like those scores at all. I wasn't a big fan. I thought Wale deserved a little bit more, a little credit than that. I mean, but all in all, considering that I thought it was gonna be absolute crap, really, because Vargas, I'm not the biggest fan of Vargas. Vargas really went a long way in changing my opinion, or at least gave me to be more open to to how he fights and any possible future fights. And Wale is definitely a welcome. It's obviously he proves himself as a pretty fan friendly fighter, TV fighter. He's always in the fight. He always has the right hand ready to go. Had nice power. He's a brawler. And hey, I'm glad that he got his chance to shine on the big stage. So kudos and props for both of them for a great opener. Which brings us to our main event: Tim Bradley versus Ruslan Provodnikov. Now this fight now in a couple of videos some of you may have seen. I was not the biggest fan of Pacquiao Bradley and what happened with Pacquiao Bradley. All the bullshit that happened and and the stuff where Bradley was saying that he was the winner even though he clearly wasn't. So I also just to be I was a little bit miffed, to put it lightly, that Bradley was has that victory over Pacquiao. So I was looking forward. I was thinking that I was hoping he'd get put on his ass in this fight. And Ruslan, I've seen him fight many times on Friday Night Fights. He, power comes straight forward at you. And there was, I knew there wouldn't be any funny business involved with him. I mean, the only thing with him is I know, yes, he can be outworked because he's a little slow. Not like super slow, but he's a little slow, and he can be outworked by someone who's pretty durable and can actually move, like he was against Mauricio Herrera. That fight about 2 years ago, a Friday Night Fight. I think it was 2 years ago. But yeah, I was expecting a decent fight. I was expecting a somewhat stinky affair, and hoping that Bradley would actually get KO'd. I got what we got instead, ladies and gentlemen out there, was the first real Fight of the Year candidate for 2013. That's what we got. Pretty much from the first bell, they went to war, and Bradley is not a brawler, and all of a sudden he's trading with a much heavier hitting man, a man who has middleweight power, even though he's at 147. And I could not believe the first 2 rounds were just jaw dropping in terms of how brutal and violent they were. So brutal that Bradley's mom and his wife had to leave their seats, because I remember they showed a camera of them and they were just like shaking their heads, just looking absolutely like, I wouldn't say sad or frightened. I would say frightened, maybe the word. Just didn't know what they were doing. And it's probably a good thing that they actually did leave it, and they leave after those first 2 or 3 rounds, because the fight just got brutal and more brutal. Ruslan could not miss that right hand, the left hook. I mean, there were several times where Bradley was literally out on his feet, like on his feet to the point, and he was still swinging, like, off the ropes. And I'm thinking to myself, man, Ruslan just needs to crack him one good time in the chin. And then in the middle rounds, Ruslan, I think, started getting a little tired, and Bradley started to outwork him. He was doing what his trainer was telling him to do. Go in and out. Don't trade with him. And then, of course, in between doing that, of course, Ruslan was pretty much at that particular point was hitting him and rocking him with, one punch, and Bradley was, doing the hucklebuck, all over the ring. And then it got to the later rounds where I think the punishment for Ruslan was, his eye was busted open by a punch. And, and Bradley had gone with a good body punch and had him. The thing that was probably the only time I seen Bradley in that particular way actually stop Ruslan enough where he could actually try to press an advantage. And then we go into the later rounds where literally now I think both men had a cumulative punishment. Ruslan's face was just lumped up. The cut was now bleeding. He was, he was just a mess. Like he would be taking a lot of Bradley's flares and all of a sudden just explode with a left hook or a right hand, or that overhand right that he had. That it was just catching Bradley, and Bradley just he'd hold on and he'd go to the ropes and then he'd absorb it and he'd still start doing all this stuff, start flurrying. Just to show. I mean that Bradley has some very unique recovery powers. Because even when he was flurrying, he was clearly out on his feet. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That man was out on his feet and he was just flurrying. He was on autopilot. He's flurrying just to make sure Ruslan wouldn't get that clean shot. Which brings us to the 12th round, where I think Bradley was definitely in control of the fight. And he probably should have just stuck and moving. Ruslan just went right at him. And in the last minute, they started doing the same thing again, just going toe-to-toe. But then Bradley had just taken far too much punishment and was finally put down in the last 10 seconds of the fight. Now, I was jumping, I was screaming, I was banging on my table because I'm thinking to myself, okay, the time is going down. I wanted the referee just to call like a stoppage like Meldrick Taylor against Julio Cesar Chavez, that type of stoppage, and give Ruslan the fight and the title. I only wish Ruslan had actually maybe had enough to like speed up and just try to run after him, try to knock him, at least try to give one more last burst. And it sucked because it was within that 10 seconds. If it was 20 seconds, it may have it would have probably maybe been enough to maybe force a stoppage. One can only say. But Bradley held on. And I'm thinking to myself, because the scores were like, I'm thinking to myself, I gave Bradley the fight by about 3 rounds. It was pretty much 3 rounds I gave him the fight. And I was just wanting to see how the cards would be. And they were close. One was a clear victory for Bradley, and then the other 2 were also Bradley, but they were like 114, 113. And probably would have made that difference, because I know there was a blown knockdown call in either the first or the second round where I think Ruslan did put him down, but the referee called it a slip, and it wasn't. Now, had that been a legit knockdown call, Ruslan probably would have won this fight on a split decision on the cards. But I will, I'm not, like I said, I'm not the biggest Tim Bradley fan, but I have to give him props for this fight. I honestly, truly have to give him props for his performance. Like, he went out there, he had that, he had that chip on his shoulder from the Pacquiao fight, and he put on a show for the crowd, which I mean, I know it was pretty dark in HBO, darkened all the empty seats out there, and maybe now, of course, a rematch would probably sell now, considering how great that fight was. And Ruslan, I mean, I'm a fan of his. I've been a fan. I've looked at it, but he's definitely on that world. He's he's definitely on the world level right now. And I personally think they should get a rematch. Probably maybe sometime at the end of the year, maybe. I would say probably, I'd say maybe late summer, do the rematch. But right now, those two need to go to the hospital for a serious post-fight examination and an overnight stay at whatever hospital or whatever, and have some extended time off. As far as, I mean, Ruslan is where he is. He has the power to compete at 147, and who knows, he may even catch a 140. Probably not Pacquiao, obviously, because since that's his sparring partner. But any other 147 contender, he might catch the best. For Bradley, my thing is possibly after. Rematch is money for him. Ruslan is now, that's money. There's no question about that. That's a money fight. But if Bradley, I know if Bradley can't be ignoring his trainer like that. I know Joe Diaz was not happy with, because Bradley was just ignoring his instructions and trading with a much larger man, and a harder hitting man at that. And I honestly think, although Bradley threw like 1,000 punches, which is excellent, and he did bust up Ruslan's face. Other than that that one bicep, he didn't really back him up. And I don't think Bradley does not have the type of power to actually compete with the type of welters that are actually in the division today. So my thing is Bradley should probably just go down to 140. Although 140 is probably even a more challenging division for him, I would say. But at least he'd have a shot, at least trying hurting a fighter there, because I just don't see. His fights at his couple, was it 3 fights? I think it's 3 fights at 147. Or they're what they are what they are. This one was impressive for all the wrong reasons. The Pacquiao fight was terrible for was not, and then the Casamayor fight was Casamayor was just he was weeded out of his mind. But yeah, it was a jaw-dropping, brutal slugfest. And overall, it was a great night of boxing where I didn't expect it. Where I expected to go against, it was going against Diaz and GSP, and I'm thinking to myself, I was thinking that pay-per-view would be a lot better. And I was watching both, as I have to do, because I am a fan of UFC. But yeah. After that fight and watching that, after that it was just no contest. And boxing won tonight, and HBO won tonight, because this was probably the best card they put on in a while. Granted it was only a doubleheader, but it was a solid opener and a classic fight for the main event. And it's a shame that the crowd was not what it should have been, but that's based on reputations of the fighters beforehand. Hell, the opener, Wale and Jessie should, fight a rematch too. I'd be very open to that, because, like I said, that was a good fight too. But overall, yes, it was a good night of boxing, and I was pleased. I was very pleased. I'm very happy that HBO is starting to get their stuff together, and realize now, we want interesting matchups. But yep, that's it for my thoughts right now, and I'm about to load this up and go back on my various forums and my Twitter and talk about the fights some more. All right, you guys. Have a good one. Peace.